Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, and I'm going to be talking about The Island, which is the new limited series from Netflix. This is going to be a review of episode 1. It's called Brave New World. So I will start spoiler free because it is in episode 1. And I'll give you warning in the middle before I go into spoilers. I am a little bit sick still, so if my voice is a little bit rough, I apologise. I will try and keep any noises to a minimum. But this is a show which is about 10 strangers who wake up on an island, which, by the way, the show is titled, it's spelled I-land, but it's 10 strangers who wake up on an island, have amnesia, don't know how they got there, don't know who they are, they have name tags in the back of their shirts, and they assume that's their names, but, I mean, may not be, but that's what they have to go on, and it's just kind of about them, this first episode anyway, is about them trying to just get to grips with basic survival and hinting at the mystery as to how they're all here. And it is absolute garbage. is the short answer. That's the short review of the show. It is absolute garbage. It is the worst possible version of the pilot of Lost, mixed with one of those movies from the late 2000s where all the characters would wake up in a room with amnesia and not know how they got there. It's that subgenre meets the pilot of Lost, with no skill, no talent, no atmosphere, no real mystery, no nothing. It was a painful 42 minutes. At least I'm thankful it was only 42 minutes. Sometimes these Netflix episodes could be over an hour long. It's bland. It is so bland. It is the blandest of McBland network style shows. And I realise as I say that Lost was on a network. There was a time when networks did occasionally put out good stuff, and I am a fan of Lost. I say this as a fan of Lost. But this episode, like, it goes through so many of the same motions. Like, there's actual debates that the characters have or ideas that they have that are directly from Lost. And obviously, if your premise is that you're on an island, some of them are bound to overlap, sure. Like, I'm not saying that they can't. But this first episode feels like it's just going through the motions of all the things that they're supposed to go through in a weird way. And it does this wonderful thing, and I say wonderful ironically, of course, where it both feels like it's very laid back and doesn't have the push, the momentum, the tension that it should to make it feel engaging, and yet somehow feels like it's going too fast, and in the sense that it just jumps ahead to points where the character shouldn't be there yet. And I don't mean it jumps in time. It doesn't. This is all on the first day. Yeah, I think it's all the first day of them waking up here. And by halfway through the episode, I shit you not, halfway through the episode, there's two things that happen which really made me cringe and roll my eyes because it just didn't feel like the show was at this point. Like, these characters should still be in crisis mode. They should still be in, holy crap, we're on an island, we don't know who we are, where we are, this is terrifying. They should be in shock still. They should be, like, barely stringing sentences together, quite frankly. And there is a kiss scene halfway through the episode between two of the strangers, which goes places which I'll get to in spoilers, which is just not what I expect to be handled well in a show like this. But the level of writing that I have seen so far, I do not trust this show to handle it. And then the other thing that happens also about halfway through, it's around the same part of the episode, is that a bunch of the 10 characters decide to go swimming in the ocean. Hey, we might as well have fun. And they go swimming, and, you know, there's them running into the water and they're splashing around and having fun. And it's like, you just woke up on an island. You don't know who you are. You don't know where you are. Why are you going for a swim? Why are you going for a swim? And I get going for a swim to cool down, because that's one of the things that's brought up, that it's really hot and this would help cool down. Sure. But it's not treated that. The tone of the scene is not treated that way. This is like, oh, it says spring. We should go swimming. Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely laughably bad. And you know, our main character, the closest thing we have to a main character is a character who comes to be known by as Chase. She's the one that wakes up at the start, and she, like, is very bland. Like I say, there's not really much going for her, but she's definitely one of the more proactive characters who's trying to figure things out. This is fine. The second character we meet is played by Kate Bosworth. Her name's Casey, but I'll just call her Bosworth for the sake of ease. I do not like Kate Bosworth. I have never liked her. I think she's the worst on-screen version of Lois Lane from Superman Returns. I think she is devoid of charisma and is just a vacuum that sucks all of the potential energy out of every scene she's in. And she's playing a southern woman in this who is very confrontational. She is the antagonist, or at least one of the group. And she immediately tries to cause a conflict with Chase in the very first scene. They're the first two people who meet each other. And she immediately tries to sort of turn it into a every person for themselves kind of thing. And right after this, when Chase kind of proves that A, she's more capable than her, and B, that she intends to try and work together. Chase wants to work as a group. She doesn't want to be every man for themselves. Bosworth spends the rest of the episode just being confrontational as hell towards her. She just starts referring to her as the bitch. That is what she calls her for pretty much the whole episode from this point on. And what's weird about it is that she does it not even when Chase... It's not like Chase is like holding a grudge because of the first scene they had together. She's just suggesting things the group should do. She's not even talking directly to Bosworth. And Bosworth will just tell her to shut up and just be confrontational. And again, I don't want to keep comparing it to Lost, but I think it's impossible not to in some ways. It feels like what they want her to be is the Sawyer of the early episodes and accusing characters like Sayid of being up to something or whatever. But, you know, that was handled with... And it's been honest, as I watched it, I'm not going to say it was perfectly done from memory, but it definitely didn't just make me roll my eyes every single time someone said something. You know, there was glances, there was some nuance. It didn't just do it all in the space of 3 scenes back to back. It's like it's rushing through like progression that it wants to do, and yet it somehow feels like it's not doing anything. It's a really impressive feat. This is like some of the worst writing I have seen in the TV show in quite some time. It feels so relaxed and laid back, and yet all the things the characters are jumping to feel like they're skipping plot beats, and it feels like they're skipping through parts of their arcs. It's very strange, and it comes off as a very sterile show. In fact, one of the big things that, if I'm going to compare it to Lost, because obviously the mystery is not the same as Lost in any way, shape, or form. There's no, loud monster in the jungle or anything like that. But one of the things that Lost has, because both of these shows are largely set in broad daylight on a beach. But what Lost has, outside of just a lot more action because there's plane parts and things and whatever, is Lost has atmosphere. You go back, and as you've talked about the whole show, I'm just talking about that pilot. You go back to that pilot of Lost, and it's got so much atmosphere. It's so well directed. The actors, well, they're not all the best actors in the world. They're all directed to really play their parts well. And they all fill this ensemble out, and they're all kind of distinct characters that are very memorable. The characters in this are so thin, it is unreal. But then, going back to the atmosphere, though, one of the things that Lost has as well that I think really helps the atmosphere is the music. Michael Giacchino's wonderful score for Lost is one of the best, across the whole show, is one of the best TV scores of all time. It is a phenomenal TV soundtrack mixed with, like, several characters have their own themes, several, story themes have their own themes. It's a wonderful, wonderful 6-year score. And the music in this is just very generic. It really doesn't add anything. And there's so many, like, moments of just, like, cutting to like someone sitting like staring on the beach, and that happened on Lost as well, but it'd be accompanied by this great music. It would be adding this tone. You'd get this sense that they're dealing with the impact of what they've just been through. In this, I don't get that. In this, I just get lots of blandly attractive cast members just kind of staring around because the script's given nothing for them to do. It's a very frustrating watch in that sense. But like I say, it jumps ahead to like doing things like, them saying we should loosen up and go for a swim is something I would expect after 3 or 4 episodes where they've kind of been here for at least a few nights and they've gotten kind of used to living on the island or something like that. And it's worth mentioning, a big part of the mystery is actually spoiled in the trailer that Netflix play at the top of the app. Depending on what version of the app you're looking at, is that they'll play a trailer for the big new show that they've got out. And the trailer that plays for the island at the top actually spoils something that's not even hinted at in the first episode. Unless you count one little visual effect, actually. But other than that, it felt like a complete spoiler. I didn't see it till after I watched the episode and I went back to the main menu. But it felt really weird. So, very odd. It's a very frustrating one to talk about because ultimately it's a very derivative show. It feels like it's going through a lot of the motions. There's scenes like And I don't think I'm saying that into spoiler here when I say, for example, two characters find a waterfall, which is a source of fresh water, and this exact thing happened in Lost. And even the debate of whether we should stay in the beach and move to the waterfall happens in this episode. That was something that happened like 5 or 6 episodes into Lost, and to the point where it actually made 2 camps because they couldn't agree. And it was this debate: do we stay in the beach and signal for help? Yada yada yada. And a lot of the characters are really annoying in this, where a character will be trying to like build an SOS sign or something, and there'll be the character who just sits there and goes, "I've not seen a plane since we woke up. It's pointless. We might as well not bother." And that attitude's always annoying in shows like this or movies like this. It's like, well, you may first of all, you've been awake for like 6 hours. That's not that long. That is really, I mean, it might take weeks before a plane goes overhead, but you want the SOS sign to be there in case they do. It's just a really frustrating attitude that these types of like ensembles always try to have. And I get it, it makes conflict. But like I say, this show just feels like it's going through the motions. It feels like it's going through a bunch of other shows and movies. Lost being a big one, of course, but there's definitely little things from other properties in there as well. And the characters are not engaging in any way, shape, or form. In fact, most of them are unlikable. A couple of them downright despisable. And yeah, I have nothing positive to say about this in any way, shape, or form. It was a tedious 42 minutes that I am not getting back. And I cannot recommend it in any way, shape, or form. Do not watch The Island. It's terrible. It's a 7-episode miniseries, and you would have to pay me handsomely to watch the other 6 episodes. Which means, I mean, given it's a miniseries, it means that it at least get to its point in 7 episodes, which I guess is good. But the mystery is not compelling, and getting a spoiler in the trailer when I get back to the main menu makes me even less interested, quite frankly. So I'll give spoiler warning here. I'll say full spoilers for The Island. I'll start with the trailer, which spoils that it's all a simulation. It's we see in the trailer Chase, the main person, be sort of like asked about the simulation and how did it happen, and maybe even suggest that they'll do it multiple times once they've revealed this in the show, kind of thing. And he also there's like a little glimpse at one point. She has like a little dream where she sees her shooting someone, presumably killing them. So yeah, they might all be criminals. They might be all convicted murderers or something like that. Which, for the record, is again just such an obvious done to death twist. Like, how many of these stories where it's a group of characters waking up and then they all turn out to be someone bad, right? That's the premise. Because I've definitely seen that in at least a few movies. That is not a new concept, but in any way, shape, or form. And it's not to say that it has to be a new concept. Like, but there's nothing in this to suggest this is why they made this. When I go see a movie or something, and it's a very derivative premise where I've seen this premise a bunch of times, but there'll usually be something. There'll be one element of it where, okay, this is why the person who made this wanted to make it. This is why they had this idea, and this is the spin they've got on it. And then you watch something like The Island, and you wonder to yourself, what was the spark? What was the thing that said, I need to make this thing that makes it different from the other versions of this story that we've seen? And I ain't seen anything in this first episode. Far from it. So there's a point where it almost got laughably bad, and that would at least be entertaining if it did go full laughable. I'm mainly thinking of when they go swimming. It actually turns into a shark attack, and one of the guys seemingly gets killed, although they find his body washed on shore later and he's not dead. But there's a full-on shark attack scene where a guy gets bit in the leg. It was surprising. It came out of nowhere, and maybe it set up this idea, the island's danger is there's sharks in the water, so you can't just leave. You can't just swim away, kind of thing. So... And then the other big thing that happened, which is there's a sort of guy with a beard who goes with Chase when she wants to go looking for stuff, looking for food or whatever, and they find a waterfall. And they're kind of flirting a little bit, and they kiss. And I roll my eyes at this point, because I'm like, wait, you've been awake for 6 hours. Why is anyone thinking about flirting? Like, for some reason, these characters all have the mentality they're on Love Island when they've been stranded without any memory in a foreign place. They don't know where they are. Sure, after a few days of getting used to their situation, I buy that they'd all get horny. I totally do. But within, a few hours of waking up? No, come on. It felt like such TV bullshit. And then the scene takes a turn because she kisses him a few times and says, okay, right, we have to get back to like doing proper things. And then he grabs her and he tries to assault her. And she has to fight him off with the knife she has. And it's one of these things where it just kind of comes out of nowhere. It feels very like, oh, we want like serious drama in this. We want to like tackle a serious subject. And it feels, again, very sterile. I don't want to say it feels poor taste necessarily, but it feels like a cheap ploy. It feels like, oh, this will make us, this turns them into the second antagonist. So now we have him and Bosworth. And the problem is that I don't trust this show. And already at this point, like halfway through the episode, I'm at the point where I do not trust this show to pull off a plotline like this. And of course, when they get back to base separately, he gets back first, and she gets back. We have this confrontation where she tries to hit him and tells everyone else what he did, and he tries to sort of belittle it and say, "No, that's silly, and why would you go looking for fruit after I said that, or after I did that? That would be crazy. Why wouldn't you just come straight back and tell everyone what happened?" And like, it just, the acting, the writing, there's no what's the phrase I'm looking for? There's like, you need a soft touch when you're doing something like this. You need a soft touch, and it needs to feel like something that's like, I don't want to say visceral, but the actual attack itself should not just feel like, oh, it's scene number 4 and this is what's happening now, which is kind of the impression you get as you're watching this scene. It's played very sterile, and then it doesn't really feel like there's much thoughts put into actually how to deal with it. The characters just kind of yell at each other in front of everyone, and no one really has like take sides. Everyone's kind of been non-committal. It's all very strange. The only person who actually takes his side, of course, is Bosworth, who goes, "Yeah, she's crazy. Don't trust her." And so a couple of the others try to talk to Chase, and she just tells him to go away. And it's just this really frustrating. Like, immediately they wanted character drama. They wanted there to be this splinter in the group. They wanted all these things, and it just feels like a cheap ploy to do it as quickly as humanly possible. And I won't say it's unrealistic that someone would try this. Unfortunately, it seems very plausible, but it just, again, it doesn't have the tact. It doesn't have the tact to actually deal with it. And, you know, like, from here, he tries to come in and apologize at one point, and he just kind of like does it in a very sort of like non-committal way where he's like, "Oh, I want to say I'm sorry," and she's like, "What for?" Like, you know, try to like actually make him say what he did, and he never does. He kind of like, no, that never happened. Like, you're putting words on it. That essentially doesn't exist here. Yada yada yada. We're on an island. Doesn't matter. And you know, he's just a sleazeball. He can't act for the record, by the way. This guy is like atrocious. He has, again, zero charisma. It is a void of charisma. The show struggles with its actors. It really does. And I can't really blame all them on their own, because I feel like direction probably plays a role in this, because it's a very, very lax style of direction. There's not a lot of passion in the screen. There's not a lot of imagination, not a lot of ideas. It's just kind of, again, going through the motions. I keep coming back to that phrase, but that's what the whole thing feels like. It's very uninspired and full of ideas you've seen in other things. And bizarrely, like, they have this meeting towards the end of the episode, and two of the characters like reveal they've found something. It's something to do with the number of steps between where each of them woke up, kind of thing, and it led them to something. And the end of the episode is they find a sign on the beach, like, you know, like a mile or whatever down the beach, that says "Find your way back." And Chase is convinced that, oh wait, we have to look into like why we're here. There's clearly like, this is a breadcrumb and there's something here, but no one wants to look into it with her. Everyone's like, "No, we should go back and like deal with food and water and whatever else." And she smashes the seashell she's had since the start of the episode, because she woke up next to a seashell that she's been using as a sort of horn. And I don't know if she sees it actually, but like, we see in the seashell there's a tracking device and like maybe like a mic or a camera or whatever. And that's where the episode ends. So, which begs the question: if this is all in a digital simulation, why do they need like tracking devices inside the digital simulation? That's kind of weird. Maybe I misread that trailer from what I watched of. I didn't watch the whole trailer. I didn't care enough. I don't care enough about what the mystery is. I don't care enough about where it's going. These characters are just plain. They're as plain as can be, and they have that very like. I always kind of say CW quality. And I feel that's maybe a bit harsh because CW actually isn't as bad as this most of the time. This is the worst of the worst. This is, to compare it to other Netflix shows recently, it reminds me of the Acting on Another Life, or maybe to go further back. What was that? What was that show me and Connor did from Sci-Fi? The George R. R. Martin one, Night Flyers. It's got that level of ensemble cast where none of them have characteristics that really make them memorable. They're not like this interesting group of people. You think of other ensemble shows. I always go back to Firefly, because Firefly does this great thing where it introduces like 9 main characters in the first episode, and you feel like you know them all by the end of that first one because it's so well written. You really understand like the relationships between all of them. Now it's harder here because they all have amnesia and they don't really know themselves, never mind each other, and you're sort of building those relationships from scratch. But you can do better than this. You can make them at least somewhat likable or memorable or something. And they are so cookie cutter. And hell, actually, I don't even want to say that, because at least that over the top archetype can at least be entertaining. Like if you have the obvious nerd and the obvious jock and the obvious, the slasher movie archetypes, like that can at least potentially be fun in a silly way. But this isn't even silly. I mean, it gets a little bit silly with the shark stuff and the fact that they're kissing 10 minutes after waking up at the beach. But never enough to actually be funny. Never enough to actually break away from its just, group focused creation. It's just you can almost feel the sterile room where a bunch of executives just decide to do this show, and I don't know who decided to make this. I don't imagine Netflix make people make stuff like this. I have to imagine this came from whatever production company made it, but it's a pass. It is a giant pass. Don't waste your time on the island. There is absolutely nothing to recommend in it. So stay away from it. But yeah, that has been my thoughts on the first episode of The Island. You can, of course, let me know what you thought of the episode if you happen to watch it, if you're unfortunate enough. If you, for some reason, watched the whole show, by all means, tell me how bad the rest of it was. I'm happy to hear it in the comments. Like and subscribe, of course. You can support everything we do in the channel over at patreon.com/BailiffuzTV. You can support us for as little as $1 per month, and every dollar does help keep all the content coming and keep us trying out new things, and so on and so on. So do that. Get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates. You can get me at Wibble89, and my voice is really starting to go, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?